Hi, this is MacRostie art class for kids. We're going to work with clay today, and I'm going to start by showing you how to cut the clay. You're going to have a large block of clay and you need to make it manageable. So you'll unwrap the top of the clay with the bag and hang on to the bag because you're going to keep the clay fresh in the bag. It'll stay soft as long as you seal the bag and maybe set it down on a knot. Then you use the wire to cut the clay. You'll want to cut off a chunk pretty thick first, set it down on something, and it's best if you work on the board you're going to receive because that way the clay doesn't stick. The wire is very sharp as far as it comes to cutting clay, so you can pull it through the clay with relatively ease and cut off the pieces of clay in the size that you want to work with. Just hold it taut and push down or pull towards you. It slices right through the clay. So now we have some pieces to work with, and we're going to sit down and we're going to make a couple push pots first, and then we'll go on to the next project. So now we're going to make a push pot. It's one of the easier things to make, and yet you're going to have some good results, especially after you get it back when it's glazed. Take a piece of clay and you want to make it sort of in a ball shape. This one's a little high, but you can have it lower like this one or not. And you get the edges off of it a little bit, you work the base so it's going to stand up. And then in order to make it a pot, you take your thumb and you push down in the center. Or if your hands are pretty small and you have something laying around like this, or the back of a big work spoon or something, you can use this to push down. And what you will do is you'll measure the depth of the clay. The clay is this thick. When you push it down in there, you want to leave this much for the bottom. So I work it down from my spot till I have a bottom of what I showed you, and then you can tell that the bottom is good. Once you have the hole in it, then you gently take your thumb in the inside or your fingers and you start squeezing your hand like this. It makes the hole larger. And that's how you make a push pot. Keep pushing around the edges and the hole keeps getting larger and larger. The outside can have a real unique look, or you can use something and smooth it off. But you work on it for a little while. You don't try to do it all in one push because the clay is soft, and if you just push on it really hard, you'll squish right through it. You'll have a hole in the side of your pot. You could actually make this a little planter for a small plant by piercing a hole in the bottom. Your mother might want to grow herbs or something in the window, and it would be pretty depending on what color glazes you choose. But as I work on it, it takes a little while. You kind of shape it with your thumb or your fingers. You know, I can have my fingers in there. Or you can use the block in there and push against the block. The block will make it nice and smooth on the inside, whereas your fingers will leave more of an impression. Makes the hole bigger and larger. And you want to keep the top edges about this thick. If you get thinner than that, it'll be a little hard to hold. It'll probably crack. So you want to have a little thickness to the edges. You kind of work it around. You take your fingers and you make it bigger and larger. You push out. If you pick it up in your hand, you can use your hand to push against so you don't tear through it. The shape of this one is kind of like a cup, and it can actually be used like a cup. You make it, check inside to see that it's kind of smooth. Any rough edges, and they dry rough like that, they'll be sharp after they're fired, so you want to have it kind of smooth. And it's going to shrink. As the clay dries, it shrinks about 16%, so you'll be quite surprised at how a big piece will, go on down and be kind of small. So this is about good at this size. So now we can decorate it. And the outside, the way we can decorate it is you can use one of your tools and you can just draw something on the side like little flowers. Get something like that, and as it dries you might want to smooth it out a little bit. You could draw Christmas trees. Since It is fall. You can draw a maple leaf. Or you could write your name on the outside, but you have to be gentle because you don't want to go all the way through the clay. And then when this dries, you're going to take your fingers and you're going to wipe off these little excess pieces. They'll come off nice and easily when it's dry. So there's a little push spot, and we're going to do it once more with a little larger piece of clay. This piece of clay, I cut it before, and now it's kind of more rounded and more flat. So this one will actually be a bowl. You know, don't be afraid to use a little bigger piece of clay, but you have to work slowly. You know, I'm using my thumb here. You could use a dowel or the back of a big spoon or something and get the hole started. And you just kind of go around squeezing it. And it can take you a little while, and you don't have to hurry at it. You know, your hands are going to be a little smaller than mine. So don't worry about it. Just kind of work on it, squeeze it a little, turn it a little, squeeze it a little. And even if you have to take a break, you know, and you want to wait a couple of minutes, 5 minutes for your hands to relax or something, the clay will stay fine for a while. It's just that if you're going to try and work on it, you know, a couple hours apart, you should cover it with a piece of plastic. The stuff that your mom wraps food with, saran wrap, or you can use an old plastic bag from the store. Now this one's looking much more like a bowl, and actually you can eat food out of them. Once they're glazed, they'll be food safe. They can go in the microwave, they can go in the dishwasher, or you can wash the dishes yourself. And you have to just work the bottom and you work the edges, squeezing them. I don't want to get it too thin. So this is looking like a pretty good sized bowl now. I may even fire it and try to eat out of it myself. So that's a push bowl, and it can be decorated with all sorts of things. You can take a little piece of clay and you can squish it up in your hand. Make a little round ball, squeeze some ears out of it, squeeze a little nose onto it. Now this is where you need to use slip. Slip is how we join two pieces together. Slip is just a little wet clay. When you're using this fresh clay like this, you don't need much. You just need a little clay with a little water on it. You can rub that on the edge of where you want to stick something. Make a couple little score marks. Just gentle little marks to rough up the surface so it has something to stick to. And I'm going to make an indent on the bottom of this to stick over the edge. Score it a little bit. Put a little slip on it. So I have a face on the side of my bowl, and I'm going to stick it on. Work it back and forth a little bit until it starts to stick. And here you're going to have a little animal overlooking what you eat. So you can do that all around the bowl. You can do a couple of them separately. You could make any kind of other things to decorate it with, but there we have two push bowls. So now for the next project, we're going to roll out some clay. With the kit you're going to get a dowel like this, and we use that for rolling clay. Or you can have your mom's rolling pin if she wants to let you use it on clay. take the clay and you just kind of move back and forth. You're pushing down on it, you're pulling it towards you. And it takes a little effort, you know, you might need a hand from Mom or somebody. Then you turn the clay every so often, get a better angle at it to roll it out, make it a little larger. And what you want to do here is you want to make the clay about as thick as your finger, you know, or maybe a little thicker if you're kind of small, a little thicker than your finger. And that way the clay, when it dries, it'll hold shape and it'll be all right. Turn the clay every so often as you're doing this. Give it nice and even. The clay gets larger as you squeeze it thinner. So for this next deal, we're going to make some ornaments out of these cookie cutters. And there's a lot to choose from. You know, we'll give you a few to take with you and use, but I'll just give you an example of how it works here. This is a Christmas tree, and if you hold the cutter up, you can feel one side has got an edge on it. That's the thick side for pushing down with. One edge is a thin side, and that's the side that'll go into the clay or the cookie dough. You place it, you don't want to place it in the middle of your clay. That's wasteful, because if you place it on the edges, you can get a lot more pieces out of one chunk of clay. So you pick a spot near the edge, but not overhanging, and you put your hand on the back and you rock back and forth and you sink it till it's all the way through. Once it's through, you take both hands and lift it up. Then you can roll the clay off of it, and you're going to have the cutout of Christmas tree. Now to make it an ornament, you're going to take the needle tool and you're going to make a very small hole partway down so it's not too close to the edge. And then you take the needle tool and you go round and round with it until the hole is about as large as the back of the needle tool. That way, as the clay dries, the hole will stay open and you'll have a Christmas tree. Once you did that, you can lay it down and you can actually use the needle tool or something and make it look like it has ornaments on it. Make a strings so it gets a little bit of Christmas spirit to it. And then when we glaze it, it's going to look pretty interesting, and you can hang it on your Christmas tree this year or in your window. So you have the clay done like that. So if you see how I did the clay, you see there's quite a bit left. So now I can make a few more Christmas trees, or I can go into the bag here and pick out a star. We'll make a star out of this one. Same way, you peel it off a little bit. You want to make the hole in it near one of the points, but not right at the edge. You got to have some clay to hold it up so as it dries. Make a little hole. And for a star, I think that for decorations, I'll have like shooting rays from the edges out to the middle. When you glaze this, the glaze will lay in those marks and it'll look a little different than it would if it didn't have them. So it's kind of an interesting thing to do, and it's a great way to have some decorations that you made yourself. Let's see what else we have here. This is an oak leaf. I don't know that you would decorate your Christmas tree with an oak leaf, but you certainly can, especially if you put some nice red and green colors on it. And we'll do the same thing. We'll put the hole in that. And let that just dry like that. So you use your clay like this. In your kit, you'll get a few of these cutouts to play with, and you can make quite a few things out of a small amount of clay, and you can decorate your tree easily with these, or your windows. And some of them are not so Christmassy, some of them are for Thanksgiving, like the leaves. It's very easy, and it's something that's kind of neat. It's very unique. It's homemade. You've done it yourself. Then when the clay is done, you can roll it up and wedge it. And you take it and you like ask your mom how she makes bread, and you just kind of whoosh it together like this and try to get all the little cracks out of it. Make it nice, one nice ball again. Then you can try and make something else with it. You could make another push pot with it. You could make an animal with it. You just start pulling on it. Squeeze with your fingers. So this looks like an elephant's head. And what I'm going to do is take something here that I have laying here. I'm going to push it down so it's nice and flat. I'm going to make some marks on it so it has some eyes. And then I'm going to take the dowel that was laying around and I'm going to make a little hole in the middle of its head. So now it's an elephant candle holder. And then you've used your clay up as something else. So there's plenty of things you can do with clay. Almost anything you can think of.